Hello, welcome back. I'm Tommy, and I help people step into their power and ignite their true passion by eliminating self-defeating thinking and behavior patterns. So today we're going to talk about the power of spirituality and what that means to me, and I would like you to think about what it means to you. So we often refer to our human self as mind, body, and spirit. And I think we all have a pretty straightforward and simple task of figuring out what our mental capacity is and is defined as, using our brain specifically, and our physical selves, brain included. But typically when we talk about our physical selves, we talk about the rest of our body and how well it is functioning on a day-to-day level. And then spiritual self. For me, spiritual self is the energetic me, which means that it's the most important part of me. Because without my energetic self, I would not be alive. I would be alive spiritually. I don't believe that my energy ever dies, and scientifically energy can't die. But my body would stop functioning and I would leave the earth plane energetically. So without my spiritual self, nothing else works. And it's interesting to me, therefore, that we spend a lot of time talking about our mental health and working on our mental health, and a lot of time on our physical health and working on our physical health. But I find that conversations around, for example, our spiritual well-being, unless you're involved in some sort of community where that is a focus, is not talked about much at all. And when I'm coaching people and we're working on goals and issues that are coming up for people, it's often that the mental mind, the brain, and the brain is working overtime. So, the thinking is overdone, confused, overwhelmed, can't turn off the thinking mind. We are inundated with information these days, so it's no wonder that our brain gets overloaded with information. And as the brain feels overloaded, then we physically start to feel overloaded as well. And that's when illness can develop. And then we start to look at ways to improve our mental health and our physical health. But the spiritual self is not always the place that people look to for a solution to addressing challenges with mental health or physical health. And I find that interesting because I don't think there's any denying that we are energy. And to me, energy is spirit. And if we're not taking care of our energetic self, I don't know how we can think that our mental and physical well-being is going to be well taken care of. So then the question becomes, how do we take care of the spiritual self? Or how do we get connected to it so that we start to learn what it needs or how it can help us in terms of our mental and emotional and physical well-being? How can we tap into our spiritual, energetic self, and how can that help build a more powerful, healthy, overall person? So for me, number one and number two sources of spiritual strength and the ability to grow my spiritual health come from prayer and meditation. And I like to refer to prayer as talking to my higher self, higher consciousness, my spirit, God, however you like to define the something that is greater than you, that you are connected to, that supports you, and where you pull energy to you from and build upon your spiritual self. That is where I connect through prayer. I call that talking to my higher self. And through meditation, my goal there is to be listening and to be picking up messaging that I'm looking for answers to my questions, to my prayers, and in that quiet contemplation, those types of supports and messages come to me. Might not be right exactly during the meditation, but soon after or throughout that day, whatever it is, I know that for me, my prayers, which I say throughout the day, by the way, and my meditation, which over time you can learn that meditation is not just sitting quietly for a number of minutes, morning and or night, but we learn to live in a meditative state so that we never lose our connection to our spiritual self. And of course, that connection is not actually ever broken, but we cut ourselves off from it quite regularly when we get too caught up with our day-to-day doing and we forget about just being, because that's the messaging that Spirit wants to give to us, is that when we stop doing so much and we can be more, we are open to receiving the energetic power that we're seeking, the support, the answers, the information. We have to be quiet enough and open enough, open in our hearts, open in our minds, open in our chakra system, our energetic system in our body, to be able to receive what is available to us and that we're seeking in order to be more comfortable and happy and healthy, body, mind, and spirit. So I know that when I first came into recovery from drug and alcohol addiction, it was recommended that I get reconnected to my spiritual self. And whether it's a reconnection or simply a connection, because some of us over the years have felt that we've been connected to our higher consciousness, to our higher selves, and some may feel like they've never been connected to it. So whether you're reconnecting or connecting, this is what was recommended in order for me to find a pathway to better mental and physical health. And I had grown up with a good connection to a higher power when I was young. I went to church and I enjoyed going to church, and I sang in the choir, and I did, I was baptized and I did my communion and all of those things. And I felt good when I went to church. I will say that I do recall sitting in those pews many a day, not understanding a lot of what was being said, either through prayer and psalms and singing and the sermon. I was young, but also the way in which things were communicated by reading out of the Bible, which, is a very old piece of scripture that didn't make much sense to me when I was a kid. But what I did know was that I had this sense of well-being when I was there. And I believe that was the energy of all the people who were in attendance, because again, we're not disconnected. And I think that's the power that people find from going to church and from finding a community where they relate on a spiritual level. It's actually our own energy that is gathering together and feels stronger together. So that's one way that some people find their spiritual strength and their spiritual power. But we find in this day and age that fewer and fewer people, certainly in North America, are attending church, or even are connected to a particular religion or a religious sect. So we hear more about spirituality and people saying that they're spiritual but they're not religious, which is perfectly fine. However you want to talk about that is totally acceptable. But I want to challenge you to think about how much time you give to feeding and nurturing your spiritual self day to day. A lot of us find time to go to the gym. A lot of us find time to go back to school, take courses, study online, learn more things, fill our minds with more information, expand our abilities in our career, things like that. But how much time do you actually spend where you could say, I just finished feeding my spiritual self, that energetic spiritual self that supports everything else that you do? How much time do you give it? Or do you give it any time? So there are other ways to get connected to your spiritual self beyond prayer and meditation. For me, I've found that actually meditation is probably the single most effective thing that I've incorporated into my daily life that has helped me grow in so many ways, and specifically has helped me become a happier person. So that's the one that I can kind of put at the top of the list. Prayer, as I say, is kind of talking to myself, because my higher power is inside me, inside you, in everything around me. So I can talk to myself and be talking to my higher self. And there's lots of books written and things discussed around that. Eckhart Tolle's, The Power of Now, and the fact that he came to sort of his spiritual awakening when he noticed one day that he was talking to himself, but he was talking to a second self. And he could differentiate between that. He's like, if I'm talking, who am I talking to? And he could start to get this vision that there's a higher self that actually can even observe your physical self and what you're doing day to day. That's an interesting practice and process to discover that about yourself. So whatever it is, you can read about how to improve your higher consciousness, your connection to your spiritual self, to source energy. There's lots of free YouTube material. There are many people you can follow, like Eckhart Tolle or Abraham Hicks or Dr. Joe Dispenza or Bruce Lipton, Greg Braden. I mean, there's a lot of people out there today sharing their understanding of growing our spiritual natures, and you can find one that resonates with you. I actually resonate with a whole lot, and I love to mix it up because I just feel like I get a more rounded version of my spiritual self and how I can keep building upon that. Anyhow, that is my message. I would like you to give consideration to how much time and effort and love you give to building and supporting your spiritual self. The energy that allows you to have a physical, mental, and emotional body and being. Without the spiritual self, without the energetic self, there is no alive human to participate in life here on planet Earth. So I really want you to think about it and think about ways that you might be able to improve and give more love and attention to your spiritual self. So thanks for being here. I hope you got some value out of that. If you'd like to subscribe to the channel, you'll see a heart on one or the other side of me. Please click it and you can subscribe. Please share my videos if you find them of value and you think others would enjoy them. And in the description, you can see the link to set up a discovery call with me if you'd like to explore the potential of doing some one-on-one coaching. You can join our Facebook group, Pure Power Coaching. You can follow us on Instagram at Pure Power Coaching. And I'm here to support you in any way that I can. And I'll see you again.